Have you ever made a choice that seemed insignificant but ended up changing everything? What if that decision cost you something precious only to reward you in unimaginable ways? This is the heartwarming and jaw-dropping story of a waitress who followed her instincts and sparked a chain of events that defied all expectations. Stick around until the end, you won't believe what happened next. It was a crisp autumn morning, the kind where the sun's gentle rays break through the cool air, and the scent of fresh coffee and baked goods wafted through small diner. The Clover Cafe was the kind of place you call cozy red leather boots, checkered floors, and an old jukebox in the corner playing soft tunes from decades past. It was the kind of cafe where regulars gathered, exchanging greetings and catching up over steaming mugs of coffee. But today, something unusual was about to unfold. Sarah, a young woman in her late 20s, had been working as a waitress at the Clover Cafe for the past 2 years. She wasn't just any waitress, she had a gift for making customers feel at home. With her warm smile, kind eyes, and genuine care for people, she was beloved by the regulars. Despite her sunny disposition, Sarah's life wasn't easy. She juggled long shifts to pay her bills, supported her younger sister through college, and was still reeling from a recent breakup. But even with life's challenges, Sarah believed in kindness no matter what, and it was this belief that set the wheels of an extraordinary story into motion. That morning started like any other. Sarah was busy balancing trays of pancakes and refilling coffee cups, exchanging lighthearted banter with the regulars. As the rush of breakfast orders began to slow, she took a moment to catch her breath near the counter. From the corner of her eye, she noticed something unusual, a stray dog sitting just outside the glass door of the diner. The dog was a scruffy, thin mutt with patches of matted fur, its ribs visible under its coat. It sat quietly, watching the passers-by with a hopeful-weary gaze. Sarah's heart ached at the sight. She had always had a soft spot for animals, growing up with rescue dogs her family had taken in. Poor thing, she thought, watching as the dog licked at a puddle on the ground in what looked like an attempt to quench its thirst. As her shift carried on, Sarah couldn't shake the image of the dog from her mind. She noticed how it didn't beg or bark, just sat patiently as if waiting for a miracle. By lunchtime, Sarah decided she couldn't ignore it any longer. During her break, Sarah approached the cook, Tony, an older man with a gruff exterior but a soft heart. "Hey, Tony," she began hesitantly, "do we have any scraps I could give to that stray dog outside?" Tony glanced out the window and grunted, "That thing poor mutt's been hanging around all week." "Sure, I've got some leftover bacon and a slice of bread. Don't let the boss catch you, though." "You know how he is." Sarah nodded, taking the food carefully wrapped in a napkin. She stepped outside, the crisp air greeting her as she crouched down near the dog. "Hey, buddy," she said softly, holding out the food. The dog's ears perked up, and it cautiously approached, tail wagging timidly. Its eyes, full of gratitude, locked with hers as it sniffed the offering before devouring it eagerly. Sarah felt a surge of warmth watching the dog eat. "You're a good boy," she whispered, stroking its head gently. For a moment, all the stress and worries of her life seemed to fade, but as Sarah returned inside, her moment of kindness took an unexpected turn. Standing behind the counter, arms crossed and face twisted in disapproval, was her boss, Mr. Grayson. Grayson was a man known for his strict policies and no-nonsense attitude. He ran the Clover Cafe with an iron fist, prioritizing efficiency and profit above all else. To him, rules were rules, and Sarah had just broken one. "What do you think you're doing, Sarah?" Grayson's voice was low but laced with anger. Sarah hesitated, wiping her hands on her apron. I was just feeding a stray dog. It looked so hungry I couldn't just ignore it." Grayson's eyes narrowed. "This isn't a shelter. It's a business. If you have time to feed strays, you have time to work." But it was just some scraps. "It didn't cost anything," Sarah protested, trying to stay calm. Grayson shook his head. "So that's not the point. I run a tight ship here, and I can't have employees wasting time on distractions." The conversation escalated as other employees and even a few customers watched silently, the tension in the room palpable. Grayson's face hardened, his tone final. "You're fired, Sarah. Clean out your locker and leave." A heavy silence filled the diner as Sarah absorbed his words. Fired? For feeding a stray dog, it felt surreal. Her coworkers looked at her with a mix of sympathy and helplessness. For a moment, Sarah felt the sting of injustice, but she quickly steadied herself. She wasn't ashamed of what she'd done. If anything, she was proud. "Fine," she said, her voice steady but resolute. "If feeding a hungry animal is a crime, then I guess I'm guilty." With that, she untied her apron, grabbed her belongings, and walked out of the cafe. The stray dog was still sitting nearby, tail wagging as if sensing she needed a little cheer. Sarah crouched down again, this time feeling the weight of her situation. "Well, buddy," she said with a small smile, "looks like we're both out of luck today." She stroked the dog's fur as it leaned into her, offering silent comfort. Little did she know this was only the beginning. Unbeknownst to Sarah, someone had been watching the entire incident unfold. A man seated in a car parked nearby. He had been on a phone call when he noticed Sarah feeding the dog and witnessed the confrontation with her boss. Something about her calm dignity and selfless acts struck a chord with him. The man, whose name was Michael, wasn't just any passerby. He was a successful entrepreneur with a keen eye for character. He believed in the power of kindness and had built his career on uplifting those who shared his values. As Sarah sat on the curb beside the dog, Michael stepped out of his car and approached her. "Excuse me," he began, his voice kind but curious. I couldn't help but notice what just happened back there. Sarah looked up, startled but polite. "Oh, it's nothing. Just another day in the life, I guess." Michael smiled. "I'd say it's far from nothing. Not everyone would do what you did. Feeding that dog, standing up for what's right, that says a lot about you." His words caught her off guard, and for the first time that day, she felt seen. The air outside the Clover Cafe was brisk, carrying the faint scent of fallen leaves. Sarah sat on the curb, the stray dog by her side, her thoughts a whirlwind of emotions. The shock of being fired hadn't fully sunk in, but she wasn't entirely sad. If anything, there was a strange sense of peace in knowing she had done the right thing. The dog, which she now noticed was a mix of Labrador and something she couldn't quite identify, seemed to sense her turmoil. It rested its head on her lap, as if trying to comfort her. She smiled faintly, stroking its fur. "Well, at least one of us is happy," she murmured, more to herself than to the dog. But what Sarah didn't know was that her act of kindness hadn't gone unnoticed. From the parking lot across the street, a man in a sleek black car had seen everything from her feeding the dog to the heated argument with her boss. He had watched as she left the diner, her head held high despite the circumstances, and now he was watching her sit on the curb, exuding a quiet strength that intrigued him. The man's name was Michael Grant. He was a self-made entrepreneur, the owner of several successful businesses in the city. Despite his wealth and status, Michael was a firm believer in the power of kindness and integrity. His own journey to success had been riddled with struggles, and he owed much of his achievements to the kindness of strangers who had helped him when he had nothing. Michael had been in the neighborhood to finalize a deal with a local supplier when he had parked near the diner to take a phone call. Little did he know, he was about to witness a moment that would change not only Sarah's life, but his own as well. Michael stepped out of his car, his polished leather shoes crunching against the gravel as he made his way towards Sarah. She didn't notice him at first, too lost in her thoughts as she absently scratched behind the dog's ears. "Excuse me," Michael said, his voice calm but authoritative. Startled, Sarah looked up, shielding her eyes from the sun. "Oh, hi," she said hesitantly, her cheeks flushing slightly. "I couldn't help but notice what happened back there," Michael continued, gesturing toward the diner. Sarah's expression turned guarded. "Look, if you're here to tell me I shouldn't have fed the dog or that I deserve to be fired, I've already heard it all." Michael smiled gently, shaking his head. "Not at all. In fact, I think what you did was admirable. Feeding that dog, standing up for what you believe in, it takes courage." His words took her by surprise. For the first time that day, someone was acknowledging her actions in a positive light. "Thanks," Sarah said softly, her tone laced with both gratitude and disbelief. "But unfortunately, courage doesn't pay the bills." Michael chuckled, recognizing the hint of humor in her voice despite her situation. "That's true. But sometimes courage opens doors you never expected." Sarah raised an eyebrow, unsure of where this conversation was going. "What do you mean?" Michael extended his hand. "Let me introduce myself. I'm Michael Grant. I run several businesses in the city, and I'm always looking for people with integrity and heart qualities that are hard to find these days." Sarah hesitated for a moment before shaking his hand. "I'm Sarah, just a waitress who apparently doesn't follow the rules." Michael laughed. "Maybe the rules are the problem, not you." Michael explained that he had been sitting in his car when he saw her feed the dog. He had been impressed not just by her compassion, but by the way she handled herself after being fired, calm, dignified, and unwavering in her belief that she had done the right thing. "I believe in rewarding kindness," Michael said, "and I think someone like you deserves a second chance. How would you like to work for me?" Sarah blinked, convinced she must have misheard him. "Wait, what?" Michael smiled. "I'm serious. I have a management position opening up at one of my companies. It's not in food service, it's more of a logistics role, but I think you'd be a great fit. What do you say?" For a moment, Sarah was speechless. Was this real? Just hours ago, she had been fired for something she believed in. And now, here was a man offering her an opportunity she never could have imagined. "But you don't even know me," she said finally. "How can you be so sure I'm the right person for the job?" Michael's gaze was steady. "Sometimes you don't need to know everything about someone to see their potential. Your actions today told me everything I need to know about your character. And character is something you can't teach." Sarah felt a lump form in her throat. It had been so long since someone had believed in her like this, let alone a complete stranger. Despite her initial doubts, Sarah found herself nodding. "Okay, I'm in." Michael's smile widened. "Great. Let's get started right away." He handed her his business card and explained the details of the job, a role in overseeing supply chains for one of his companies, ensuring that goods were delivered efficiently and ethically. Though the role was far from anything she had ever done before, Sarah felt a spark of excitement. This wasn't just a job, it was a chance to start fresh, to prove to herself that she was capable of more than she ever thought possible. The next few days passed in a blur. Sarah spent hours learning about her new role, diving into the world of logistics with a determination that impressed even Michael. She quickly discovered that her skills as a waitress, multitasking, problem-solving, and working under pressure translated seamlessly into her new position. But Sarah didn't just excel professionally. Inspired by Michael's belief in her, she began to dream bigger. She started thinking about ways she could use her new platform to make a difference, starting with the stray dog that had unknowingly changed her life. She decided to adopt the dog, naming him Lucky. It felt fitting given how his presence had brought her good fortune. Lucky quickly became her constant companion, a reminder of the day her life took an unexpected turn. As Sarah settled into her new role, her story began to spread. Her coworkers were inspired by her journey, and Michael often shared her story in meetings as an example of the kind of character he valued in his employees. Even her former coworkers at the diner heard about her new job. Some reached out to congratulate her, while others expressed regret for not standing up to Grayson when she was fired. As for Grayson, the strict boss who had dismissed her, the Clover Cafe began to suffer after Sarah's departure. Customers missed her warm presence, and employees felt demoralized under Grayson's rigid leadership. Eventually, the cafe closed its doors, a stark reminder of the cost of valuing rules over people. But the story didn't end there. Sarah's journey had a ripple effect that extended far beyond what she could have imagined. Inspired by her act of kindness, Michael decided to launch a new initiative within his company, a program that donated a portion of their profits to animal shelters and rescue organizations. Sarah became the face of this initiative, sharing her story at events and inspiring others to take small actions that could lead to big changes. Her passion and authenticity resonated with people, and the initiative quickly gained traction. Lucky, now healthy and happy, became a symbol of hope and second chances. Photos of Sarah and Lucky were shared on social media, garnering thousands of likes and comments from people who were moved by their story. Months later, Sarah reflected on everything that had happened. What started as an ordinary day had turned into a life-changing experience, all because of a single act of kindness. She had lost her job, but in the process, she had gained so much more: a new career, a new purpose, and a newfound belief in herself. As she sat on her porch, Lucky curled up beside her, Sarah couldn't help but smile. Life had a funny way of surprising you when you least expected. Sarah's new life was a whirlwind of opportunities, challenges, and personal growth. Leaving behind the familiar yet stifling routine of waitressing, she stepped into a role that required her to adapt quickly, think strategically, and manage responsibilities she never imagined taking on. At first, the transition felt daunting. She had no experience in logistics, let alone managing a team. But with Michael's mentorship and her own unrelenting determination, Sarah began to thrive. From her very first day on the job, Sarah was determined to prove herself. She immersed herself in learning everything about logistics, supply chains, and ethical business practices. The role wasn't just about moving goods from point A to point B. It was about ensuring that every step of the process was efficient, sustainable, and aligned with the company's values. Sarah quickly discovered that her previous experience as a waitress had prepared her more than she realized. Years of juggling customer orders, managing high-pressure situations, and solving problems on the fly had sharpened her organizational and interpersonal skills. But there was still so much to learn. Sarah spent late nights poring over manuals, watching training videos, and asking countless questions. Michael, ever the supportive mentor, made himself available for guidance. He admired Sarah's willingness to step out of her comfort zone and assured her that mistakes were part of the process. "You don't have to be perfect, Sarah," he told her one day during a meeting. "You just have to be willing to learn and grow." That's what makes a great leader. As Sarah settled into her role, she began to connect with her team. At first, some employees were skeptical of her. After all, she was new to the field and lacked the technical expertise that many of them had. But Sarah didn't let that intimidate her. Instead, she approached her team with humility and a genuine desire to learn from them. She made it a point to listen to their concerns, ask for their input, and show appreciation for their hard work. Slowly but surely, she earned their trust and respect. Her team began to see her not just as their manager, but as someone who genuinely cared about their success and well-being. One day, during a particularly challenging project, Sarah stayed late at the office with her team, helping them brainstorm solutions and troubleshoot issues. Her willingness to roll up her sleeves and work alongside them made a lasting impression. "You're not like most managers," one of her team members told her. "You actually care." Sarah smiled. "I know what it's like to feel undervalued. I'll never let that happen to you." While Sarah was busy transforming her professional life, Lucky, the stray dog she had adopted, was transforming her personal life. The once scruffy mutt was now a healthy, happy companion who brought joy and comfort to Sarah's days. Every morning, Lucky accompanied Sarah on a brisk walk before she headed to work. These walks became a source of clarity and inspiration for Sarah. They reminded her of the simple yet profound lesson she had learned the day she met Lucky. Even the smallest acts of kindness can have ripple effects far beyond what you can see. Lucky also became a beloved fixture at Sarah's workplace. On Fridays, Michael allowed employees to bring their pets to work, and Lucky quickly became the office mascot. His friendly demeanor and wagging tail lifted everyone's spirits, reinforcing the company's culture of compassion and community. As Sarah's confidence grew, so did her impact. Inspired by her own journey, she began to think about ways to extend the company's values beyond its walls. With Michael's blessing, she spearheaded a new initiative aimed at giving back to the community. The initiative, called Acts of Kindness, focused on supporting local shelters, food banks, and animal rescue organizations. Under Sarah's leadership, the program gained momentum quickly. Employees volunteered their time, the company donated resources, and partnerships were formed with other businesses that shared their vision. Sarah also started sharing her story at community events and company meetings. She spoke about the day she met Lucky, the challenges she faced after losing her job, and the unexpected opportunities that came her way. Her authenticity and passion resonated deeply with audiences, inspiring others to embrace kindness and take risks in their own lives. One day, as Sarah prepared for a presentation at a local charity event, she received an unexpected phone call. It was Maria, one of her former coworkers from the Clover Cafe. "Sarah, I just wanted to say I'm so proud of you," Maria said, her voice filled with emotion. "I heard about everything you're doing now, and I feel terrible for not standing up for you that day." Sarah was taken aback. She hadn't spoken to Maria since the day she was fired, and hearing her voice brought back a flood of memories. "Maria, it's okay," Sarah said gently. "I don't blame you. Honestly, everything that happened that day led me to where I am now." "I wouldn't change a thing," Maria sighed. "Still, I wish I'd done more. But seeing what you've accomplished gives me hope. It's a reminder that standing up for what's right is always worth it." The conversation left Sarah feeling both nostalgic and grateful. It was a reminder of how far she had come and the power of forgiveness and understanding. Sarah's journey wasn't without its challenges. Balancing her new responsibilities, managing a team, and building community initiatives required a level of energy and focus that sometimes felt overwhelming. There were days when self-doubt crept in, and she questioned whether she was truly capable of handling it all. But whenever she felt discouraged, she thought about Lucky Michael and the countless lives she was impacting through her work. Those thoughts kept her grounded and motivated. One of the biggest challenges came when the company faced a major supply chain disruption. A key partner unexpectedly went out of business, leaving Sarah and her team scrambling to find alternative solutions. The situation tested her leadership and problem-solving skills like never before. Instead of panicking, Sarah rallied her team and encouraged them to approach the problem collaboratively. They worked tirelessly, exploring creative solutions and leveraging their network of contacts. In the end, they not only resolved the issue but also established new partnerships that strengthened the company's operations. The experience was a turning point for Sarah. It showed her that she was capable of overcoming even the toughest obstacles and that she had the support of a team who believed in her. Months turned into a year, and Sarah's life continued to flourish. One evening, as she sat on her porch with Lucky by her side, she took a moment to reflect on everything that had happened. She thought about the day she met Lucky, the confrontation with her boss, and the unexpected encounter with Michael. She thought about the risks she had taken, the lessons she had learned, and the people who had supported her along the way. Most of all, she thought about the power of kindness. "It all started with you," she said, scratching behind Lucky's ears. "You reminded me that doing the right thing is always worth it, even when it's hard." Lucky wagged his tail as if he understood every word. Months turned into a year, and Sarah's life continued to flourish. One evening, as she sat on her porch with Lucky by her side, she took a moment to reflect on everything that happened. She thought about the day she met Lucky, the confrontation with her boss, and the unexpected encounter with Michael. She thought about the risks she had taken, the lessons she had learned, the people who had supported her along the way. Most of all, she thought about the power of kindness. "It all started with you," she said, scratching behind Lucky's ears. "You reminded me that doing the right thing is always worth it, even when it's hard." Lucky wagged his tail as if he understood every word. Life has a way of bringing things full circle, and for Sarah, this couldn't be more true. What began as a single act of kindness, feeding a hungry stray dog, had sparked a series of events that not only transformed her own life but also inspired countless others to embrace the power of compassion. As the dust settled on her incredible journey, Sarah found herself standing at the crossroads of gratitude and purpose, eager to pay forward the opportunity she had been given. 1 year after adopting Lucky and stepping into her new role, Sarah decided it was time to give back to the community in a more personal way. Her experience had taught her that even the smallest acts of kindness could create ripples of change, and she wanted to ensure that others, especially those facing hardships, had the support they needed to rise above their circumstances. With Michael's encouragement, Sarah launched a nonprofit initiative called Second Chances. The organization aimed to help people rebuild their lives through education, mentorship, and access to resources. Its mission was simple: to provide individuals with the tools they needed to unlock their full potential, just as Sarah had been given a second chance to prove herself. The initiative started small, hosting workshops on topics like financial literacy, resume building, and emotional resilience. Sarah also partnered with local animal shelters to promote pet adoptions, inspired by her bond with Lucky. The organization's tagline, "Change starts with a single act of kindness," resonated deeply with everyone who became involved. One of the most fulfilling moments came during the organization's first community event, where Sarah shared her story in front of a crowd of over 200 people. As she spoke about her journey, her struggles, her triumphs, and the lessons she had learned, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. "Kindness is not a weakness," she told the audience. "It's a strength that has the power to change lives. And when you lead with compassion, the world has a way of opening doors you never knew existed." Among the attendees at the event was an unexpected face, Grayson, her former boss at the Clover Cafe. Sarah spotted him at the back of the room, looking uncharacteristically humbled. After the event, he approached her, his expression a mix of regret and admiration. Sarah, he began hesitantly, I owe you an apology. I've thought a lot about what happened that day, and I realize now that I was wrong. I let my pride and my rigid sense of control get in the way of seeing what really mattered. Sarah was surprised, but not angry. She had moved past the pain of that day, and hearing Grayson's apology only reinforced her belief in the power of growth and redemption. I appreciate that, Grayson, she said with a warm smile. It takes courage to admit when you're wrong. And honestly, losing that job was the best thing that ever happened to me. It led me here. Grayson nodded, clearly moved by her grace. I can see that you built something incredible. If there's any way I can support your work, please let me know. Sarah didn't hesitate. How about volunteering at our next event? We could use someone with your organizational skills. Grayson agreed, and over time, he became one of the nonprofit's most dedicated volunteers. His involvement was a testament to the idea that it's never too late to change and make amends. While Sarah's professional achievements continued to grow, her personal life flourished as well, thanks in no small part to Lucky. The once abandoned dog had become a symbol of hope and resilience, not just for Sarah, but for everyone who heard their story. Lucky accompanied Sarah to schools, community centers, and events where he served as a living example of the transformative power of kindness. Children adored him, and adults found inspiration in his journey from stray to beloved companion. One particularly memorable moment occurred during a visit to an elementary school. Sarah had been invited to speak to a group of fifth graders about the importance of empathy and helping others. As she shared her story, Lucky sat beside her, his tail wagging enthusiastically. When she finished, a young girl raised her hand. Miss Sarah, if you didn't help Lucky that day, do you think your life would be the same? Sarah smiled, her eyes glistening with emotion. Not at all. Helping Lucky taught me that doing the right thing, even when it's hard, can lead to amazing things. He changed my life as much as I changed his. The girl nodded thoughtfully, and Sarah couldn't help but feel hope for the next generation. As Second Chances gained momentum, they partnered with other businesses, launched online courses, and even started a scholarship program for underprivileged youth. One of their most ambitious projects was the creation of a mobile resource center, a refurbished van that traveled to underserved neighborhoods, offering free workshops, job training, and access to essential supplies. Sarah personally oversaw the project, ensuring that it stayed true to the organization's core values of compassion and empowerment. The mobile center quickly became a lifeline for many, providing hope and opportunities to those who had long felt overlooked. Throughout this journey, Sarah experienced profound personal growth. She became more confident, resilient, and self-aware. She also learned to embrace vulnerability, recognizing that sharing her struggles made her more relatable and inspiring to others. Her relationship with Michael evolved from mentor-mentee to a genuine friendship built on mutual respect and shared values. Together, they pushed each other to dream bigger and do better, knowing that their work was making a tangible difference in the world. Sarah also developed a deeper connection with herself. She realized that her worth wasn't defined by her past mistakes or the approval of others. Instead, it was rooted in her ability to stay true to her values and make choices that aligned with her heart. Years later, Sarah's story became the subject of a documentary that highlighted her journey and the impact of second chances. The film, titled A Single Act of Kindness, premiered at a local theater and received widespread acclaim for its heartfelt message and inspiring narrative. During the premiere, Sarah sat in the audience, holding Lucky's leash as she watched her story unfold on the big screen. She couldn't help but feel a sense of awe at how far she had come from a waitress fired for feeding a stray dog to a leader, change maker, and advocate for kindness. As the credits rolled, the audience erupted into applause. People approached Sarah afterwards, sharing how her story had touched their hearts and inspired them to take action in their own lives. One woman, tears streaming down her face, said, "You've shown me that it's never too late to make a difference. Thank you for giving me hope." Years later, Sarah's story became the subject of a documentary that highlighted her journey and the impact of second chances. The film, titled A Single Act of Kindness, premiered at a local theater and received widespread acclaim for its heartfelt message and inspiring narrative. During the premiere, Sarah sat in the audience, holding Lucky's leash as she watched her story unfold on the big screen. She couldn't help but feel a sense of awe at how far she had come from a waitress fired for feeding a stray dog to a leader, change maker, and advocate for kindness. As the credits rolled, the audience erupted into applause. People approached Sarah afterwards, sharing how her story had touched their hearts and inspired them to take action in their own lives. One woman, tears streaming down her face, said, "You've shown me that it's never too late to make a difference. Thank you for giving me hope." As Sarah reflected on her journey, she realized that her story was just one piece of a much larger puzzle. Every person who chose kindness, every small act of compassion, and every moment of courage added to a collective movement that had the power to transform the world. And so, she continued to share her message, reminding people everywhere that change starts with a single choice. Take a moment today to perform an act of kindness, whether it's helping a stranger, supporting a cause, or simply sharing a smile. You never know how far the ripple effects might reach.